When you listen to music, what attracts you to a song? The beat, the melody, the lyrics? Welcome to Auditio Divina, Sacred Listening with Heart, a podcast sponsored by Spirit Way, a program of Whatsoever You Do Incorporated in Green Bay, Wisconsin. For centuries, Lectio Divina, or sacred reading, has served as a spiritual practice that has helped people to reflect upon the scriptures with a 4-step process. Katie and Tony, hosts of the popular podcast Revealed, sponsored by Resurrection Catholic Parish, bring this ancient practice to the world of music through listening, meditating, praying and contemplating, or sitting with a song. The words and music come alive to add spiritual depth to the experience of listening. Let's join our hosts, Katie and Tony, as they lead us through this spiritual practice, ever ancient and ever new. Welcome to Auditio Divina, Sacred Listening with Heart.
Welcome to Auditio Divina, Sacred Listening with Heart. I'm Katie.
And I'm Tony.
And we are breaking open a song that relates to the 5th Sunday of Lent.
The 5th Sunday already. One for every finger on our hand.
Yeah, high five, dude.
You got it.
Hey, and you know what? We're in the home stretch. We are looking at Palm Sunday is just coming up on the horizon, but let's not look at that too quickly because we want to focus on this scripture passage from the 5th Sunday of Lent.
And you know, Katie, usually you turn to me and say, oh, Mr. Scripture Scholar, which I'm not, by the way, but I'm going to turn right back to you. And we're going to focus on the woman caught in adultery from John's Gospel. So, as a woman, tell us a little bit about that story.
Well, as just a recap, because this is probably not as famous of a story that we've heard of the last couple of weeks, but this is a really important one as well, because this is no longer a parable. This is actual fact that happened. So the Pharisees and the scribes bring this woman to Jesus that was caught in adultery, and they're looking for Jesus to condemn her. They're looking at him to, say, hey, this woman is bad. And the punishment for adultery back then was stoning. Now, where the guy was that was part of this adulterous relationship, we don't know. I guess that wasn't important to them back then, but we all know that it takes two to tango, right? But moving on, the Pharisees and the scribes bring this woman to Jesus and want her condemned. And Jesus, in his beautiful mercy, instead of condemning her, starts writing in the sand. And now we don't know what he's writing in the sand. Does it really matter? Not really. But he's giving them time to kind of reflect, because he says, those that without sin can cast the first stone. Great words that we hear so much in our lives. The one without fault can start condemning. And now Jesus had every right. He was without sin. He had every right to condemn her, but he didn't. He showed her mercy. And as he writes in the sand and kind of calls to mind that mercy that he wants all of us to show, they start dropping the stones and walking away. And I would love to see the face of Jesus picking up his head and looking at this woman and is like, where'd everybody go? And then he tells this woman that, she is loved, basically, and that he calls her to go forth and to do the best that she can in her life. He says to sin no more, but what he's saying is that you are loved and go do the best that you can with your life. A lot of people focus on the casting the stones and, not to judge people if you have your own judgment to make of yourself. But what I love about this is we're going to actually focus on the woman. How does her life come to a point, and where does she go from here? She's being confronted with this condemnation. What does she do after this point?
Well, Katie, we're going to do this with a song that I have loved for a very, very long time. I wish we would have done an Auditio Divina on this song early on in the history of this podcast.
But Tony, we know that timing is everything, and this was the moment that we were supposed to be doing it. So.
Absolutely, because I think this is the perfect song for this woman caught in adultery scripture passage for this Sunday. So we are going to use the song Landslide by Stevie Nicks of Fleetwood Mac. there's an interesting background to this song. A lot of people link this song to a father-daughter relationship. There's a live version, in fact, the version we're going to use today, where Stevie Nicks dedicates the song to her dad and says, "This is for you, Daddy." This song now has been played by so many brides for their first dance with their father to mark the beginning of their married relationship. And yet, the background of the song is so much richer than that. So here we go. Early 70s, Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks have this relationship. And they not only have a professional relationship, but a personal relationship as well. They put out an album that absolutely bombs. I mean, it doesn't sell a thing. And they're disheartened. Like, where is their career going? Stevie Nicks is cleaning hotel rooms and waiting tables in a restaurant to pay the bills. Well, they go to Aspen because Lindsey Buckingham is going to do some work with another guy, some musical work. So they go to Aspen. They stay in some resort. Lindsey does his work, and then he leaves, leaving Stevie Nicks and a friend of hers behind. And it was during that time that she's looking at the mountains, she's pondering her life and viewing her life as like a landslide. Like my life is at this crisis moment, this moment where I don't know where I'm going. I don't know where my life is going. And everything seems to be coming down on me. Very similarly to the adulterous woman who in her life probably felt like life is coming down on her too. She's about to be stoned. Her past actions, along with this guy who we don't know about, they are causing her to be at this very crisis moment. And so this song propels Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham forward because it's shortly thereafter they meet Mick Fleetwood and form Fleetwood Mac, and they record the song Landslide. And as they say, the rest is history. And so I think this is just a perfect song to reflect upon the woman caught in adultery.
And I love that we are focusing on the woman and we're not focusing on the ones that dropped the stones and walked away. And Jesus saying, that those without sin cast the first stone. So we're kind of taking a little bit of a different angle on this.
And really focusing on crisis moments. The woman had a crisis moment who was caught in adultery. Stevie Nicks had this crisis moment. We all have our crisis moments. Where's our life going to go? We can say that about this Lent. We've got a couple weeks left. Where's our life going? Where's our journey going in Lent? So let's go right into Auditio Divina in that first step, which is called Auditio. It's Latin for listening. We're going to listen to this second verse of Landslide from Fleetwood Mac, and we're going to be listening for a word or a phrase that really grabs us, catches us, sticks out to us, chooses us today. So let's listen to Stevie Nicks and that beautiful voice of hers sing Landslide.
Oh, mirror in the sky, what is love? Can the child within my heart rise above? Can I sail through the changing ocean tides? Can I handle the seasons of my life? Well, I've been afraid of changing, 'cause I've built my life around you. But time makes you bolder, even children get older, and I'm getting older too.
As we come back from that first listen, it's time to share what that word or phrase is that's calling us to reflect on our life. For me, my phrase was fraid of changing.
And for me, the phrase that really shows me today is, can I sail through the changing ocean tides? So let's go to the second step of Auditio Divina, which is meditatio. That's Latin for meditation. And this time, as we listen to our song, we're going to be looking at and reflecting upon and meditating on Why is that word or phrase choosing us today? What is it about that word or phrase that's sticking out? So let's listen a second time to Landslide by Fleetwood Mac.
Oh, mirror in the sky, what is love? Can the child within my heart rise above? Can I sail through the changing ocean tides? Can I handle the seasons of my life? Well, I've been afraid of changing, 'cause I've built my life around you. But time makes you bolder, even children get older, and I'm getting older too.
As we come back together, it's time to share why we feel that word or phrase is calling us. What is it calling us to respond to? My phrase was fraid of changin. I hate change. I want things back how they've always been, where I've been comfortable, where I've grown accustomed. Even when things are hard, as long as I know what to expect, what I have come accustomed to, I like it. I am a creature of habit. I do not like change. But that's not life. That's not how God calls us to live. When there is change, there is growth. And we always have a response. We can either embrace that change and grow stronger and closer to each other and to God, or we can spiral and have those crisis moments where it doesn't go well. Now, I feel in my personal life, I've probably, spiraled more from change and gotten into more of a depressive mode when there's major changes instead of embracing them. And I feel like the woman caught in adultery, she was living a life that God called her to change out of. And I feel like she had this choice. And so I think about this woman that's caught in adultery, and, she's standing in front of these men that want to stone her for her actions. And she's at that, like you keep saying, Tony, this crossroads of, do I change my life, or do I, go back to what I know? And Jesus shows her that mercy of, and says, change is okay. We want you to change. We want you to become more in tune with your relationship with God. And so isn't that what we're all called to when we're faced with these moments of major change? Do we walk away, go back to our old ways, even if they're not healthy, or do we embrace what God calls us to? Now, I'm going to be completely honest, when there's change, sometimes you have those little setbacks. But if you, for the majority of that time, change into the good and embrace the goodness of the change God is calling us to, how is that bad? How is that good? What is there to be afraid of?
For me, my phrase was, can I sail through the changing ocean tides? I haven't been to the ocean a ton of times, but I have been there, and I know that ocean tides change. They change every day. The tides come in the evening and they go out in the morning, and you got to pay attention to that. And if you're a sailor, you really need to pay attention to that, because if the ocean tides are changing and you don't take note of that, you could be finding yourself, your ship, your sailboat, your whatever, smashed up against some rocks, and nothing good is going to come of that. So this phrase of, can I sail through the changing ocean tides, knowing that every day my life is going to have some changes to it. And I need to pay attention to that life isn't going to be the same every day. I would love it too, just like you just talked about, Katie. I'd love for no change to happen sometimes, but it does. And if we don't take note of it, pay attention to it, our ship is going to slam up against some rocks. The woman caught in adultery found herself at this moment of change, and how Jesus was calling her to change. This crowd of religious leaders were going to force her life to change and perhaps end her life and change it permanently. But she was at that critical moment of change, and she needed to take some note of that. And then as she moved forward with this encouragement from Jesus, that was going to affect her life forever, taking note of that change. Stevie Nicks is the same way in her life, just taking note of the fact that her career, her life, her relationship with Lindsey Buckingham was at a critical crossroads, a critical juncture. And she took note of that and wrote this beautiful song that reflects that. And it has become the landmark song, truly, for Fleetwood Mac. And they've made bazillions of dollars, I'm sure, off of this song. But beyond that, it really served as the launching point for a new part of Stevie Nicks' career. But it served as a landmark of change, something she took note of. And because she did, she was able to pivot in her life and to make some changes that were necessary so that she could have some success. So, yeah, in terms of my own life, paying attention to the changing ocean tides, it's really important. And if we don't, our ship's going to crash. So let's go into the third step of Auditio Divina, which is oratio. And oratio is Latin for prayer. So we're going to listen a third time to this song, and then we're going to lift up our word or our phrase to our loving God, to the spiritual, to the holy. So let's listen a third time to Landslide by Stevie Nicks and Fleetwood Mac.
Oh, mirror in the sky, what is love? Can the child within my heart rise above? Can I sail through the changing ocean tides? Can I handle the seasons of my life? Well, I've been afraid of changing, 'cause I've built my life around you. But time makes you bolder, even children get older, and I'm getting older too.
And now we invite you to lift up a prayer from your heart to the sacred using your word or phrase.
Well, welcome back from that time of prayer. And now we're going to move into the fourth step of Auditio Divina, which is contemplatio, which is Latin for contemplation. We're going to listen a fourth and final time to our song, and then we're going to let that word or phrase just sink deeply into us, affecting our Lenten journey, pondering the woman caught in adultery, pondering Stevie Nicks, pondering our own lives. So let's listen a fourth time to Landslide by Fleetwood Mac and Stevie Nicks.
Oh, mirror in the sky, what is love? Can the child within my heart rise above? Can I sail through the changing ocean tides? Can I handle the seasons of my life? Well, I've been afraid of changing, 'cause I've built my life around you. But time makes you bolder,
And now we encourage you to rest in that presence of the sacred, letting that word or phrase sink deeper into you, to truly meditate on that word or that phrase. Well, welcome back from that time of meditation. It's time to share how that word or phrase is going to permeate our lives this week. My phrase was afraid of changin'. And I feel like I need to embrace change. Every time that there's been change in my life, no matter how scared of it I was, it's always turned out well. And so I need to say, you know what? Enough is enough of being afraid of changes, to start really just focusing on what is the good of this change. Where can my life go because of any changes that happen? And so that's where I'm going to let it permeate. I'm going to just say, you know what? I'm getting too old to be afraid anymore, right? And that, I love that where she says, time makes you bolder, and I'm getting older too. Like, yeah, you know what? It's enough is enough to start looking for where God is calling me to go in any kind of change that comes my way. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop being afraid. Or at least I'm going to try.
And for me, my phrase again was, can I sail through the changing ocean tides? I think it's a challenge every day to be aware, to just have your eyes and your ears, your mind open to the changes in your life. They're coming. They're coming. They're going to come every single day. We can sleepwalk through life, or we can be aware and open to the changes in our life. I think one of the most important things for me is discernment, is taking some time every day, if I can, to just sit in a little bit of contemplation and awareness of where my life is going, where the changes are coming from, where the changes are calling me to go towards, and just sit in that awareness, in that contemplation. Otherwise, life becomes a life of unreflectiveness, if that's even a word. I think that the most purposeful life is the life that's reflected upon. And so that we can change the course of our lives. We can read the ocean tides, and we can make adjustments where necessary. So I think as I go through the rest of this Lent, I need to sit with change and sit with that awareness that change is coming. And I just need to be aware of the signals of change as they come upon me.
Well, you know what they say, the only thing constant in life?
Taxes.
And death.
And change.
And change.
There you go. All right. So there you have it. That's our Auditio Divina, focusing on Landslide, focusing on the woman caught in adultery. And so, until we see you for the 6th Sunday of Lent, which is also known as Palm Sunday or Passion Sunday,
catch you on the flip side.